Hi there, Musitrature recaps here. Today, I'm breaking down a movie called Hwang Jin Yi. The story kicks off with Nomi engaging in a gambling session with other men, where they discuss the latest town gossip. Nomi, aware that one of the players is the former manager of the late Hwang's estate, subtly provokes him, implying he's a thief. When Nomi wins the next round with a pair of aces, tensions escalate into a brawl between the men. Nomi proves to be an adept and skilled fighter, easily overpowering the manager and his staff, forcing them out of the city. The following day, Nomi visits the late Hwang's estate, now managed by him. He's responsible for overseeing the property that has been home to many for years. Standing at the doorstep, memories of a young Hwang Jin Yi flood back, the girl he had fallen for more than 2 decades ago. Set in the 16th century, where social class determines one's destiny, Hwang Jin Yi, raised among aristocrats, loved the modest and genuine Nomi, a guy who was ready to marry her. On a particular evening, Hwang Jin and Nomi explored the city together, marveling at their hometown's architectural beauty. However, they ended up losing each other in the crowd. While Nomi struggled to locate little Hwang Jin Yi, the household staff found her first and brought her back to her father. Learning that his daughter had left home due to Nomi, her father ordered his retrieval. Mr. Hwang, intending to teach the insolent boy a lesson, whipped Nomi, delivering several blows to his face. Young Hwang Jin intervened, tearfully pleading with her father to spare Nomi. The next morning Nomi left a sprig of flowers for the girl and departed from her house forever. Now, Nomi has returned to his homeland, driven by a desire to be closer to Hwang Jin Yi. This young woman, known for her legendary beauty, wit, talents in poetry and dance, continues to captivate him. When Nomi finally meets with Hwang Jin Yi, he finds himself speechless, utterly enchanted by the girl's eyes and smile. Soon after, Hwang Jin Yi receives news that her mother has arranged her engagement to a new fiancé. Although she's upset about it, she's hesitant to defy her family due to her aristocratic status and the expectations placed upon her. In a conversation with her servant, Egm, Hwang Jin Yi discusses Nomi. However, her grandmother isn't pleased with the gossip and urges her to stop spreading it. A while later, Hwang Jin Yi dresses as a boy and ventures into the city incognito. While wandering, she accidentally finds herself in a district known for its easily accessible women. Trying to fend off unwanted attention from other women, she pushes a man and accidentally breaks wine jugs. The man and his cronies demand money from her, only to realize that the boy in front of them is actually a girl. This only increases their interest, and they see an opportunity for amusement with the innocent aristocrat. Suddenly, Nomi arrives on the scene, wielding influence among the locals. He rescues Hwang Jin Yi, but this only adds to her frustration, as she believes she could have handled the situation on her own. On another evening, a man infatuated with Hwang Jin Yi sneaks onto her property. Peering through her window, he admires her beauty from afar. The servant spots the unwanted guest and apprehends him. Though the guards are ready to punish him, Hwang Jin Yi intervenes and requests his release. Touched by her compassion, he leaves with a few lines she wrote on his pristine canvas. After a couple of days, Nomi heads to a nearby town, and the following morning, another suitor arrives at Hwang Jin Yi's house, the one she's supposed to be engaged to. Later on, Hwang Jin Yi notices a lively funeral and wonders why people are singing songs. Her grandmother explains that this is how the funerals of wealthy women are celebrated. Their lives were challenging, so they embrace eternal rest with joy, songs, and smiles. While observing the funeral, Hwang Jin Yi spots Nomi in the crowd and is puzzled by why he's accompanying the coffin of a woman who offered companionship for money. In the evening, Hwang Jin Yi returns home to a disturbing scene where her brother has forcefully taken a servant. During a conversation with her mother, a shocking secret about her birth comes to light. It turns out her father was not the upstanding family man he appeared to be. Her mother concealed the truth, not wanting anyone to know that her husband coerced the servants. Although she managed to free the other girls, she couldn't do the same for Hwang Jin Yi's mother. The mother discovered she was pregnant and chose to raise Hwang Jin Yi as an aristocrat, despite her lower-class origins. Upon learning the truth, Hwang Jin Yi burns manuscripts and confides in her grandmother. Through her grandmother, she discovers that Nomi provided refuge for her mother and cared for her. Her mother worked with men for money, and the funeral Hwang Jin Yi witnessed was hers. In the morning, Hwang Jin Yi, along with Nomi, visits her mother's grave to bid her farewell. Soon, the entire city becomes aware that Hwang Jin is from the lower class. The coffin of Nomi, a guy deeply in love who has passed away, arrives at her home. Nomi is furious at the townspeople's behavior and hands out clubs to the helpers, urging them to disperse the crowd. However, Hwang Jin Yi intervenes and steps outside. She bids farewell to Nomi and leaves a wedding pendant on his coffin, symbolizing the transformation from the former aristocrat she was. Shortly after, Hwang Jin reconnects with her grandmother and learns about the challenges awaiting her. Despite her readiness to accompany her grandmother, she decides against it, not wanting to put the elderly woman in jeopardy, and assures her she will leave. In the evening, she invites Nomi to her room for a heart-to-heart conversation and quality time with the man who genuinely loves her. Hwang Jin shares that she's facing three paths: to pretend to be an aristocrat and become a wealthy man's mistress, to work as a servant and live as a slave, or to become a kidnapping, a courtesan. She chooses the third option but has a request: she wants Nomi to be her first partner. She also asks him to be her pimp, arranging clients and ensuring her safety. Nomi declines, revealing that he was the one who disclosed the truth to her. He feared losing her forever and the consequences were unintended. Hwang Jin doesn't get angry at Nomi, instead, he speaks from the heart, expressing regret and seeking forgiveness. Realizing further words are unnecessary, she extinguishes the candles and lanterns, and the two share an intimate moment. Eventually, Hwang Jin embraces the life of a kidnapping, working in a house alongside other courtesans. So, during a party, a slightly drunk customer discovers that one of the girls used to be an aristocrat. He decides to take advantage of this and makes unwanted advances towards Hwang Jin Yi. She fights back, landing a punch on the man's face. In response, he strikes her with such force that she loses consciousness. But don't worry, Nomi steps in to defend Hwang Jin and fights off the disrespectful customer. Feeling responsible for the shattered state of her life, Nomi decides to write a farewell letter and leave the city. Before departing, he seeks out the arrogant customer and enacts revenge, first stripping him of his dignity and then his life. Fast forward 5 years, and Hwang Jin Yi has become renowned not only as a kidnapping but also as a skilled poet. The city's judge invites her over, not for any inappropriate intentions, but to share a new poem he has written and to seek her opinion. Hwang Jin Yi reads his poem and surprises him with her own poetic talent. The judge then asks if she's open to spending the night with him, but when she declines, he respects her decision. He wants her to genuinely fall for him, not force her into anything. A few days later, the judge invites Hwang Jin Yi to his home for lunch. Other guests are taken aback by the presence of a kidnapping, but she's here as a skilled writer. She brings a new poem that pleases the judge but offends one of the guests. This guest is indignant and plans to complain, only to realize that Hwang Jin Yi is the same kidnapping he was with not too long ago. As night falls, Hwang Jin Yi can't sleep and plays a musical instrument while reminiscing about Nomi. She yearns to be with him, but she recognizes her status as an ordinary kidnapping whose duty is to satisfy wealthy and demanding clients. So, one morning, Hwang Jin Yi receives the cherries Nomi gave her, making her think he's still around. This leads her to decide not to attend Mr. Kim's party and brace herself for any consequences from the respected nobleman. Well, guess what? On that very evening, a gang of bandits attacks Mr. Kim's mansion, resulting in injuries to both the guests and the invited kidnappers. Soon after, Hwang Jin Yi pays a visit to the judge, suggesting they spend the night together once again. But this time, she refuses the client and proposes a more intriguing game, aiming to expose the hypocrisy of the upper-class men. Later that night, she seeks wisdom from an elderly sage, hoping to learn life's secrets and gain valuable insights. On her way back home in the morning, Hwang Jin Yi witnesses beggars sharing the food Nomi gave them. Meanwhile, the judge finds out that the bandits have been distributing stolen food to the city's poor. He's furious about this and wants the bandits punished, even going so far as to display their heads publicly. However, Hwang Jin disagrees, believing that the judge is no better than the bandits. The next morning, Hwang Jin goes to a camp on the city's outskirts and sends a message to Nomi, warning him that guards will soon search the area and he should make a run for it. Meanwhile, the judge gets word that a royal steward is coming to their city for an audit. He's in a tight spot because he needs to recover 5,000 stolen coins before the steward arrives, or he'll face serious trouble. In the dead of night, the bandits strike again, this time robbing a local aristocrat's house. When morning comes, Hwang Jin Yi learns that Nomi has been declared a wanted man, accused of sending a whole family to the afterlife during a robbery. Nomi himself finds out about the accusations and realizes he's being framed. In the evening, Nomi uncovers the real culprits' names and gathers the entire city outside the home of a mastermind who was willing to take his own relatives' lives for the sake of robbery. So, under the pressure of torture, the mastermind spills the beans about the stolen jewelry's hiding place, helping Nomi clear his reputation. As news spreads that guards are on their way, Nomi and his fellow bandits make a swift exit, urging the locals to tell the truth. However, the guards arrive earlier than expected, forcing the criminals to flee. The following morning, citywide searches commence. Intriguingly, the guards arrive at Hwang's place, aware of Nomi's connection with Hwang Jin Yi from her past as a Jisiying. Meanwhile, under cover of darkness, Hwang Jin learns of Nomi's hideout and rushes to tend to his wounds and provide assistance. On a different front, the judge discovers the long-standing relationship between Nomi and Hwang Jin. Nomi suggests that Hwang Jin escape to an island for a fresh start, and she agrees, her feelings for him still alive. Realizing the guards are more interested in drinking than capturing the bandit, the judge orders their arrest. The following day, traitors meet their end at the hands of the judge, who then assembles a formidable guard army to hunt down Nomi. They launch a night attack on the bandit camp, using fire arrows. Meanwhile, Hwang Jin orchestrates a wedding for her maid and Nomi. Amid the festivities, the groom gets kidnapped in the evening. Desperate for help, Hwang Jin seeks the judge's assistance, only to learn from his assistant that the judge himself has taken the groom captive. The motive? To extract information about Nomi's whereabouts through torture. In the midst of all this, Pimp Hojang endures brutal torture but steadfastly keeps his silence. Meanwhile, Nomi and his crew gear up to flee the city and seek refuge on a distant island. Upon hearing about his friend's arrest, Nomi crafts a letter to the judge and sends an arrow flying into his house. In the evening, Hwang Jin Yi approaches the judge, pleading for her friend's release. Recognizing the only way to sway him, she undresses and shares an intimate moment with him for the first time. With the dawn, the pimp is finally freed. Hwang Jin tries to depart, but the judge lashes out at her due to her lack of affection for him. Back at home, she discovers Nomi's return, determined to save both her and his comrade. Hwang Jin Yi heads back to the judge's residence and finds Nomi, who has surrendered to the guards. A few days later, it dawns on her that Nomi is slated for execution in 2 days' time. Under the cover of night, she visits him in his prison cell. Unfazed by his impending fate, Nomi expresses gratitude for her love. Hwang Jin Yi offers him a cup of wine as a poignant symbol of her feelings, echoing a gesture from their past and affirming her desire to be his wife. When morning arrives, Nomi meets his end through execution by hanging, his life taken at the town center. Later on, Hwang Jin collects Nomi's ashes and bids her home farewell forever. As she reaches a mountainous area, she ascends a rock and scatters his ashes, reciting her final verse to him. And with that powerful moment, the movie concludes. Thank you for watching.